So this started last year. We were playing B-sides. Virus from DC949 said to me, hey, drink all the booze, hack all the things. That's how we're doing it this year.
Not every geek with a Commodore 64 can hack into.
We talked a little bit about what we're doing and all that good stuff. And I'm just going to turn on my video so you guys can see me. All right. So, hi, everyone. Welcome to DC207. My name is Ben Allen. I'm your host this evening and organizer for the DC207 chapter here in Maine. Tonight, we have a really special event. We're calling it Community Voices. And what we're trying to do is trying to pick people out of the community who have interesting and different backgrounds in a variety of different things, and really kind of get those people together talking about technology, talking about security, right? So tonight's agenda, I'm just going to go over this really quick. I have a quick introduction. There's some new folks here, so I just want to key you in on what this is. We have some announcements. We have our speakers. We're going to give away the stuffs tonight. Tonight's prize is an RTL SDR kit, which is a software-defined radio dongle with a bunch of doodads and gizmos. I can tell you why those are amazing here in a little bit. And I'm going to plug the next event. So DC207, what the heck is this thing anyways? So if this is your first time, my thought here is that InfoSec is awesome, so let's talk about it. Let's talk about the awesome things that are in InfoSec. And the goal here is to build a really diverse and inviting information security community. When I first got kind of started in the InfoSec community, I don't know, I didn't quite find my group, right away. So I was like, hey, I'm just gonna do my own. So, and then I went to DEF CON. I got inspired by them to start up a chapter, and yeah, we've been doing it ever since. It's going on 2 years in a few more months, so it's pretty cool. We promise 100% awesome community curated content, no corporate BS ever. So you'll never see a sponsored pitch for anything. It is just people in their professions talking about the things they love, and that's awesome. And we meet every second Thursday. We canceled last month's event due to the speaker dropping out last minute, but that's okay. We should have everything kind of ramped up for next month as well. And I started creating some backlog of people who are able to give a talk at a moment's notice. So we want to kind of always meet. We don't ever want to cancel. So sorry about that. So just for announcements, very, very basic. I know some of you folks have probably heard about our scholarship that we've been talking about. We've been collecting funds, and we've been taking all the funds from the purchases of the DC207 flag shop, and we've been taking all those profits and putting them directly into a little pot, and that pot is for scholarships. We wanted to do this because there's a lot of traditional and non-traditional students that are involved in the information security community, like people who are going to college and people who are just non-traditional learners. They're trying to get a certificate or something like that. They need that boot camp. They need the training. So we have a fund. It's funded, which is excellent. I'd love to fund it some more, but I'm happy with our modest goal we got started off with. Because I'm kind of a dictator, I decided to pair up with some people. I've actually tapped Kaylee Day and Greta Lozada, who will be actually joining me on reviewing the applications. So if you know anybody, or if you're personally interested in tapping into those funds, please let us know. Send us an email over at root@dc207.org to receive an application. We'll actually launch this on our website sometime early next month before the next DC207. But if you're interested in getting that early scholarship application, let me know. Again, if you can share this with anybody who you think might benefit from this, let us know. We want to give this out to folks who need it. So anyways, tonight we have not one, not two, not three, but 4 speakers. Woo! Different backgrounds, different skill levels. So we have Jen Webb, but I haven't seen her join us yet. We have Sam Wilkins, Ryan Boutot, and Elyse Nielsen. Is that right? Nielsen? Is that your?
That's right.
That's how you spell it. Do what now?
Yep, that's right, Nielsen.
Okay, cool. Sorry. I mispronounced one person's name one time, and I've been paranoid ever since. So, so community voices, right? Like I just said, it's about being heard and teaching others. You don't have to be, you know, this gifted prodigy to teach things and mentor other people. And you know, that's what we want to do. We want to share these knowledge pieces with other people. So Elyse will be, who's in the very bottom left there. She's going to be presenting first. She has a really interesting talk for us tonight. Now, you're going to be talking to us about Azure Cloud and stealing like authentication tokens and and manipulating those, right?
Yes. And
awesome.
And we can use and some tools that we can use and where to find them. Yeah. So it's going to be it should be a pretty interesting journey.
Fantastic. Okay, so what I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing, and then I think you should be able to share. Let's see here.
You just have to enable participant screen sharing.
Okay, one thing. Allow participants to do this. Man, they really just locked down Zoom. It's good, I guess. I don't know. So try now, at least.
There we go.
Awesome. Great.
Okay, can everybody see?
I can see.
Cool, then we're good.
Loud and clear.
So, Ben, thank you again very much for taking the opportunity and giving me the opportunity to share a little bit. This can be a little bit interactive, so I hope that everybody has a chance to speak up and ask a question here or there, and if I don't know the answer, I'll figure out who would and get that to you. So I first want to kind of thank a lot of people where I've gotten most of this content from. Hugh Bullock, Sean Metcalf, Dirk Jim, Rhino Security Labs, Matt Burrow, and John Seville, just to kind of help you get a framing on who's provided a lot of the brains, and I'm just thanking them and sharing how it kind of all comes together. So what we're going to talk about tonight is a couple of different things. The first thing we're going to talk about is ways that you can authenticate and access Azure. Then we're going to talk a little bit about where to find access tokens, and then how to steal those access tokens, and then something you can try yourself with ROADtools. How many people have heard of ROADtools? All right. So then it's something brand new. It actually is something brand new. I think it was released in May, so it's a really cool concept by Dirk. So the first item is Azure has a lot of different ways that you can access. You can go through with a pass-the-hash synchronization, a pass-through authentication, AD federated services, certificate-based authentication. You can have conditional access policies. You can have Azure Cloud Access tokens. You can also have legacy authentication portals. So, and I'm pretty sure there's a couple others that you guys may also think of from being able to be aware. So I'm going to hit some of the high ones here, mainly just going through password hash synchronization, pass-through authentication, ADFS, and Azure Cloud Access tokens, which are really, the Cloud Access tokens are really used with applications. And this works on Azure Service Management and or Azure Resource Management. So you can use them both ways, and it should be kind of interesting. So to start with, we're going to start with pass-the-hash synchronization. So what happens here is Azure AD Connect synchronizes a hash of the hash. So you have Azure AD Connect running on your on-prem with a VM. Typically, sometimes it's also on a DC, what I've seen in actual implementations of this coordination. And it basically then will synchronize up your Active Directory up to Azure AD, but it will have a hash of the hash in order to be able to perform authentication. So when somebody logs in, they're going to basically access Azure, and they're going to get authenticated, and it works well. So the hash automatically enables sign-in to Office 365, which has recently been renamed Microsoft 365, and other Azure AD services based upon using their on-prem AD account, so they don't have to remember 2 different passwords. The thing big to know here is that, yep, there's a hash of the user's password in the cloud. The next main approach is basically pass-through authentication. And here, password validation requests are shared with the on-prem AD, leveraging an authentication bridge. So what happens is you basically do not have the hashes stored in the Azure AD. Instead, it is actually stored in the on-prem AD. And there is a queue that the agent will go up and grab the information from, and then be able to pull it on down and validate. And authentication is via Kerberos, which is an important point to note. This enables single sign-on with other Azure apps, but make sure you have it. So you're going to have a Kerberos ticket, and that's going to help to be able to facilitate your authentication. The next one is AD Federated Services. And AD Federated Services is probably at this time one of the most common methodologies. A company has purchased another organization, and then they federated the AD instead of actually brought them all into the force, because it's the easy and the cheap way to be able to handle things. And then you federate that to your cloud. Credentials here are stored on-prem, and if you're actually attacking, you would actually hit the on-prem authentication ADFS portal. So, you know, this actually gets to a point where, depending on how much acquisition goes on, it may actually even become unmanageable. Then this is the cool one, which is Azure Access Tokens. And this is typically used for application and service authentication. And how it basically works is you authenticate to Azure with an OAuth token using OpenID Connect. And I'm going to minimize this a bit so you can kind of see. And I have a little bit here that we can kind of talk through, because this is the important one to realize. So when the client first goes over to the service to be able to authenticate, the service says, I don't know who you are, and sends it over so that the realm can be queried. And then when the realm is queried and it says, yep, you can actually access and you do have permission to this, then it goes and you get an access token and a refresh token. The access token typically has a 1-hour lifetime. The refresh token can be accessed up to 90 days as long as you have the session in the browser open. Now what happens here is the user will then go and authenticate to the service using the access token, and an hour relapses. And so then after the hour, the refresh token goes to Azure AD, and it says, yep, you're still out loud. It goes back out and it does another, it updates the refresh token and the access token, and then that new access token is going over to the service. So you never ever have to actually revalidate and go into the realm in order to validate access. You're basically using the refresh token and getting refreshed. So the cool thing about this that we're going to be looking at is these tokens can be used on other Microsoft endpoints. So if you wanted to start off with PowerShell and you were moving over to SharePoint, you would be able to send the access token and get access to the SharePoint service. So let's talk a little bit about where to find access tokens. So the first thing you need to have is you need to have a user. And user enumeration can be performed on Azure over at this URL, so you can see whether the user exists or not. For on-prem, OA, and AWS, you can also enumerate users with some timing attacks, mail snipers, and both. The coolest thing is you need to be able to find a user. So if you're actually in the middle of a pen test and you're looking around an environment in order to see, these are some places that you can take a look in order to be able to see if there are access tokens. The first thing is I would check out to see if there's any cloud service packages. These are typically zip files that are used in development, and they're deployment files created by Visual Studio. So as you actually compile the code, sometimes you have other dependencies, and this will provide those dependencies via XML files. So you can actually go and take a look at other service integration points for Azure Storage and Azure SQL if you actually open up and take a deep dive into these files. So you look through the CS package files in order to be able to find the creds or the tokens. A common place to check is to make sure that you've actually got the Visual Studio, the cloud directory where you actually publish. So this takes a look, and if you have, you can check here for access tokens. Another place you can look at action tokens, similar type of setup, is in the publish settings. Typically here, it makes it easier for developers to push code to Azure. Leveraging publish links, it contains a base64 encoded management certificate. Sometimes you have some clear text examples. You can open the publish file settings in the editor, and I have one down here that's a little snapshot. And what you basically do is you save the management certificate to a PFX file, and away you go. This allows you to search the user's download and Visual Studio projects. So you search through, you find your token, and then you're in good shape. Another place that you can also find it, and this is actually most common, is in the web.config and app.config files. These typically are in the root folder, and they have their credentials, as you can see, so that you should be able to go through and look to see on the dependent service, and then be able to find. And then you just basically extract it to a PFX file, similar to the same way we set up the publish file settings. And we'll actually walk through how we basically set up access tokens in order to be leveraging PowerShell. The other key thing to also not kind of forget about is command history. Sometimes people actually, in command history, they've actually run this, and you can kind of see where it is. So if you're checking out command history, remember that in Linux, it's .bash history is the file that you can concatenate, you can cat up to the screen and be able to use. And in PowerShell, command history is also located in this file under app data, the console host history. So if somebody, how often has you been previously when you actually impatiently type something or put something too early and it was actually into the command prompt? So this is a good place to look. Next also is if you have an organization that internally develops code, you can check the internal code repositories. For some reason, developers have a false sense of protection if the GitLab server is on-prem, and the GitLab repo has more information than it would be if it was public-facing or actually out on the cloud. So typically in this, if you can do a search and you find them, you will be able to find more keys than you can actually have handled to do it. So things to look at is you basically try port screening 80 and 443. And if you're at a site like that has a significant amount of applications, I've actually seen one health system that had 7,000 applications. So obviously you can't walk through all of those individually. You can leverage the Kali Eyewitness application in order to screenshot each service for quick analysis. And then you can use something like AWS Sage in order to be able to use machine learning and check out, say, hey, this kind of looks like that. You can query on PremAD for host names is another technique. So you can see that, hey, some of the subdomains may have Git code, some of the actual server names, maybe repo, Bitbucket, GitLab, if they haven't actually adopted early in their startup phase, if they haven't actually adopted a naming standard, you'll begin to kind of see these things. You can also use automated tools that you use to search Git on the web. You can use those to search Git on house. And here's a couple of tools, which is GitLinks, TripleHog, and GitRob. And things to look for is you look for access key, AKIA, the RSA ID, which credentials, secrets, passwords, and tokens. That will kind of help you with some file names to kind of search. If you actually are using Azure, if you are on a device that actually uses PowerShell as an administrator, you can actually check the authenticated session because it's actually stored under that user's profile in .azure. So you can go in and you can take a copy. So I was doing an example last night, and here you can see these are all the files that you would actually see there, and you will take some of these and move them over, and then you could actually walk through and access as somebody else. The multiple tokens can exist in the same file area, so just keep that in mind. So let's talk a little bit of how to steal. So the first thing you do is, let's say we're in this scenario and we said, hey, this is what we've got. We've got these files. That Azure actually has content, and I see these. So the very first thing we have to do is we have to prepare our stolen our token cache.dat file and our Azure RM context.json file for import into our PowerShell session. So what we basically do is we run these commands where we get the content of the token and we encode it, and then we actually convert it to a base 64 encoding, and then we add that content to a file. So we got our stolen tokens, which was the token cache.dat and Azure RM context.json, which are from these two files here. We base 64 encoded them, and then we save. So we add the base 64 token encrypted, the token encoded file that we've come up with. We go into the Azure RM context.json file. We take a look and say, hey, let's find this cache data, and it's currently null, and we replace the null contents with the contents of our encoded token. And then we save that file as stolen token. And next thing we can do is you go into PowerShell, you import the profile, and you are actually accessing as somebody else. And you can run a test and basically say, hey, this is what I'm accessing. And this is kind of how you walk through it. So now we've taken the access tokens that we found, and we have manipulated them a bit. But basically, we imported and then leveraged them in an authenticated session. Kind of cool. Any questions on this?
I have a question. So now that you have that session, you know, like, are you able to like enumerate what you're able to do? Like, I imagine some tokens probably are not as awesome as other tokens, right?
That's correct. And that gets us into where we can actually enumerate around. And let's talk a little bit about ROADtools. So I don't know if you've seen this, but Dirk Jen recently came out with the ROADtool framework. And what this will allow you to do is you can go around and with one valid credential, you can actually enumerate and get all of the users, all of the groups that the users are a part of, not just your user, but everyone. So this framework is actually built off of an internal Azure AD Graph API versus the one that's commonly published. And he spent a year going through and looking at all the different endpoints. So if you have one valid credential, which is what our Azure access token was, you can go in, you can extract all of the data to offline storage, and then you can go and do offline analysis on the data. And right here is kind of how you basically go and do the authentication. And if you check out his webpage, you can see how you can get the extract. And the other really cool thing that he does is he actually has a Bloodhound Python script that he's written. So you can actually incorporate this in, and then you'll have the Azure AD instance run through Bloodhound to be able to see how you can get to different elevated privileges to get to the person who's to get to the account that's a better opportunity. So it's something that's interesting to check out. Obviously, make sure you have permission before you do for the company that you do it with, but you can be able to see a lot more than you would expect.
So I guess I have a question. So the Bloodhound integration, have you tried that out? How does that work? Do you find that
He actually has it programmed right into the framework. So let me pull this up.
Oh, okay. Okay, nice.
Can you guys see my screen?
Right now, we just see your PowerPoint.
Okay, hold on. Let me go back here. Let me stop share and then reshare. So he's written this where this is where you dump the data and how you can basically leverage the data. And then in here, he has a Python that's already written in the GUID. So it basically just runs through this application and you can see the different roles and directories and how it connects, whether somebody has MFA or not. And I don't know if he has the pop-up on the Bloodhound here, but he did have it in the description. Right here, yep. So it's already incorporated within. So then, you spend, if you go and play with this tool, it's a relatively new release tool, but in 30 minutes, you're like, wow.
Yeah, that looks like it has a lot of potential. There's just so much content out there about AWS. It's so refreshing to hear that there are like new things being developed with Azure, and again, like having that Bloodhound integration, that's pretty freaking cool.
Yes, it is. So I think I went a little over on my 15 minutes. But if anyone wants to talk about this offline and discuss, just reach out to me on LinkedIn, and I would be more than happy to have a conversation.
Yeah. Does anybody have any questions for Elyse?
Actually, could we get a link out? Are you posting these slides or any of the links available in the chat or in the Slack afterwards? Because some of this, I think, I need to just read more to even have intelligent questions.
Hey, Curtis, I can send you the links, and Ben, I can send the slides so that we can post them someplace.
Yeah, I can put that. I can put your slides up on the DC207 site if you want, and we'll share them out with tonight's email.
Yep. Okay. Perfect.
Yeah. Great, Curtis. Anybody else? Erica says that she didn't know about the refresh tokens lasting 90 days, so thanks for sharing. Thanks, Erica. Austin Bauer says, you're an inspiration. So that's good feedback.
That's good feedback.
I was somebody's inspiration. All right.
Well, I've been on the planet for 48 years, and this is the first time I'm an inspiration, so thank you.
Well, there's always a first time for everything, I suppose.
Can you hear me? Oh. Okay.
Go ahead.
Oh, hey. When you find an Azure token, is it pretty clear that it's an Azure token, or does it just kind of look like a encoded kind of thing? Is there a way to like readily identify what you found?
It's pretty clear it's an Azure token.
Cool. Thanks.
All right. Well, virtual clap for Elyse. Thank you so much. And again, if you have any questions for her, hit her up on LinkedIn. She's out there posting great content, and she's awesome. She's one of my favorite people. So thank you again, Elyse. We're going to jump right into our next presentation, which is going to be SAM. So Sam is going to give us a talk a little bit about Elastic and its use as a SIEM, which I think is going to be really interesting. So she's a recent security grad. She actually went to UMA for their information security program, and she's an analyst right now for a company out in Phoenix. And according to one of her most recent tweets, she's an enjoyer of cantaloupe. I'll let her expand on that if she wants to. Yeah, so you are all set to share. Sam, if you want to go ahead and kick us off.
Cool. Let's actually share first. Okay, are we good? You guys will see my PowerPoint?
Looks good.
Hopefully.
Good.
Awesome. Cool. Good there. Move some stuff around here. All right, so my talk is over Elastic as an affordable SIEM and protecting your company without breaking your budget. This is focused mainly on IT and security personnel in small to medium-sized businesses that are looking to make sure they have the security structure in place. It's not a really technical talk, but it's more about the pros and cons. Starting off, a little who am I? Ben introduced me pretty well. I'm a recent graduate. I work for a security company as an analyst right now, and I live in Maine. Most of my work revolves around blue teaming and dealing with managed security services for clients, and I do OffSec stuff in my free time. Disclaimer, I'm not affiliated with Elastic or any of their products. I'm just a fan of affordable software and keeping small companies safe. So starting out, what is a SIEM and why do I need one? Some people call it SIEM, some people call it SIEM. You can call it whatever you want, in my opinion. We have a little diagram of one here. So a SIEM stands for Security Information and Event Management. This is a tool that will aggregate and analyze security data through your network devices. A SIEM can come in all different forms and costs. You can see the basics of how a SIEM operates in the diagram. You can see that when the device has produced logs, it gets forwarded to the SIEM, which can be used by an analyst, IT personnel, or anyone who needs to audit those logs. From a security standpoint, a SIEM is an incredibly useful tool. Unfortunately, they can also be pretty costly, and as most smaller companies can probably agree, they don't always get the budget for the tools that they need. So what's Elastic? Some of you might have heard of it, some might not. I'm going to go over it now. They recently rebranded to just Elastic, but a lot of you guys may know them as the ELK stack. This is made up of Logstash or FileBeats, which ingest logs, Elasticsearch, which stores, indexes, and analyzes logs, and Kibana, which is their main user interface. Kibana is what's interacted with as the SIEM, but it works together with the stack to produce a full working SIEM. We have visualizing the Elastic flow. For those of you who aren't as familiar with it, you can see here kind of how it all works together. So we have the logs that are being ingested, wire data, log files, metrics, Windows events, and this can be tailored to the needs of your company. And it can either ship to Elasticsearch or more commonly ships to Logstash, where you can parse and transform the data. You can make sure the logs are in formats that are going to be most readable for you. And if you have different kinds of logs, you can put them into like a common schema and make sure that you can read different logs the same way. That goes to Elasticsearch, which stores them, and a lot of words, and gets sent to Kibana, where you can actually view them. While some SIEM solutions are simpler in execution and the technology involved, some of them you just drop in your environment and point your applications at them and they log. The involvement of the technology in the stack can lead to more customization to fit your network, which personally I think is really nice. So what about other SIEMs? There are a lot of SIEM solutions on the market. Some of the most used ones are things like Alien Vault, Splunk, and Logarithm, which are going to be the ones that we're going to be focusing on here. While all solutions have their minor differences, one of the deciding factors for a lot of smaller companies is the price tag. Not everyone can afford Logarithm. Start off with Logarithm doesn't have a lot of good information out there besides it's really expensive. The closest thing I could find was $28,000 a year starting price. But we can also see that Elastic, it starts at $22 a month for the Platinum edition. There are other editions of Elastic as well. Alien Vault starts around $650 a month. Splunk starts around $150 a month. And this information is taken from either company sites or the closest numbers that can be found. Since most solutions work on a pricing model that's equal to the amount of data that's being ingested, these numbers will vary from business to business. These are only like the starting cost for the lowest amount of data ingested. It can be seen easily, however, that Elastic is definitely the most affordable in terms of starting costs. I have a tool comparison up here. This isn't the features for all of them, but it does demonstrate the point that while all of them have their differences, the main tools of analyzing and monitoring logs is there for all of them. We're not going to go into each specific thing on there, but it gives a good overview. And I didn't know that actually like moves in the presentation itself. That's cool. So I have a little side-by-side of the Elastic Kibana interface, their dashboard, and the Alien Vault dashboard. And you guys can kind of see when it's not moving. It's a little hard to see when it's moving. They're pretty much really similar side-by-side. I didn't include the other ones in here because, in my personal opinion, like if you've seen one SIEM, you can kind of make out what another SIEM looks like. But all the basic features are going to be there for both of them. Elastic in particular, in my opinion, has a lot of good customization for their dashboard in terms of having what you want to see on there. And that's all I have. If anyone has questions.
Yeah, so I mean, so Logarithm is like what, $28,000 question mark? You know, why would someone choose something like that over, you know, this, you know, potentially quite affordable solution, in your opinion?
That's a great question, one that I actually forgot to put on my slides. So one of the main reasons for choosing one of the larger, more expensive options over something like Elastic would be if you have a really big company, you have the budget, and you want that basically easiness of it. Elastic is going to take a while to set up and deploy, and it doesn't, not saying you can't use it with large corporations, but it definitely takes more work and more upkeep, whereas using a more expensive solution, they'll typically handle a lot of the upkeep for you. It'll be a lot easier to deploy and maintain. So if you have the budget for it, it's a good option depending on the size and depending on what you want it to. Oh, I think we have some people in the chat.
We have a question from Austin. It says, can I run Elastic on prem, or is it only available as a cloud service?
So, it's a good question. I've only used it as a cloud service. I think, in my opinion, it's definitely a lot easier as a cloud service. I haven't actually tried running it on-prem, but most of the time when you go for quotes, it's going to be via the cloud. The best answer I have on that one.
Yeah, that's good.
I've got a question.
Go ahead.
You know, it seems like the main difference here is just ease of setup. But so, Sam, would you say that like well-trained SOC analysts it is really what's going to be able to make the difference? Like, you know, if you had I guess what I'm getting at is if you had a limited NetSec fund would you maybe go with Elk Stack and kind of struggle through setting it up and put the money in the analyst, or does like the benefits and ease of Logarithm make it worth it over the humans?
Honestly, I'd say if you have a limited number of people available and you have a smaller infrastructure, personally, I'd go with Elastic. Maybe put some money into getting the Elastic trainings. I'm actually going through them right now through my company, and they're amazing. The deployment really isn't that hard. When you get to customizing like the logs that you're ingesting and customizing a lot of stuff, you're going to need to put in a little work, but it doesn't take like a super amount of work. And the ability to like customize and to train people to customize that, in my opinion, is it's worth it, having Elastic.
Cool, thanks.
Yeah. And I also have, and my contact information is there, my Twitter, my LinkedIn, if you guys have any additional questions.
Yeah, feel free to hit her up. Definitely follow her on follow her on Twitter, because she's got a great Twitter feed. Abby says sweet headset, by the way, so happy to see that you landed in working in security. That's great. Yeah, because you're a recent hire, right? I mean, this is a newer job for you.
Yeah, I've been with my company for about 3 months now, and it's been great.
Yeah, that's awesome. Congratulations.
Thanks. If anyone ever wants help on getting into the security industry, since I have done it pretty recently, I'm willing to give advice on anything. I'll stop my share.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks, Sam. I really appreciate that. So nice job. Everybody's clapping. Or just imagine they are. I want to go ahead and hand it over to our next presenter, Mr. Ryan Boutot. You likely have seen him present things in the past. He's going to be talking about elearnsecurity today. You may be aware of this training program or training certification body that has content out there. Basically, he's going to be talking a little bit about his own experience with recent certification, and yeah, so I'm going to let him just go at it. So take it away, Ryan.
All right, yeah, thanks. Yeah, so as Ben said, I recently had the opportunity to take the elearnsecurity web application penetration testing training, as well as go through the EWPT certification. So I just kind of wanted to put a quick talk together and let anyone who maybe is looking at elearnsecurity specifically, or maybe taking any of the other certifications out there, just kind of like an idea of maybe if this platform is for them or not. So starting off here, what is elearnsecurity? It's a virtual training platform with a range of courses from beginner to expert level. They have things like malware analysis, web defense, digital forensics, threat hunting. They have general pen testing courses, as well as more focused courses around web applications and mobile testing, as well as some other courses around things like exploit development. So obviously they do specialize in cybersecurity. So whether you do blue teaming, red teaming, or purple teaming, there's probably going to be a course out there that might interest you. The pricing is what usually will scare some people away. The cheapest end of their pricing is really if you're a student, you can get some pretty sweet discounts that way. And those ones will start at around $400. On the higher end, you get your more advanced classes. And then depending on if you add some fancy bells and whistles to your training, you're looking at paying $2,000 or more. So pretty expensive considering what you're going to get. They have a few different tiers, things like bare bones, which is exactly what it sounds like. You're going to get the bare bones. You're going to have the slides and access to those for your training, and you'll be able to get access for an exam. You have a limited amount of time to actually get it done. So that that's going to be your cheapest option though for any of the courses. When you get the full, you'll have things like video training in addition to your in addition to slides. You'll have lab access. You'll have, I think, 60 hours of lab access for the full. And then with the Elite, you'll have the video, you'll have the training with the slides, you'll have 120 hours of lab time, and then you can also get a never-ending voucher. So basically, that'll mean that you can take this exam whenever you want. And I was actually pretty lucky enough to get that one because I had access to these to this course like a year ago, and I just kept putting it off. So finally got around to getting it done and didn't have to buy another voucher. So that was pretty cool. So the training is split into a range of modules. As you can see here, this list is from the training that I took for the basic version of the web application pen testing. You can see like information gathering, cross-site scripting, SQL injection, session security. It's going to cover all the basics. It did a pretty good job of just doing just the basics. And it's mostly self-study with slides. And so what I mean by self-study with slides is they're going to give you thousands of slides, and it's up to you to go through them. There's no hand-holding. There's no like, here's what you're going to do this day or this week, and here's some things to work on to make sure that you absorb the content. There's none of that. It's thousands and thousands of slides. Depending on your style of learning, that can be fine. For me personally, I'm much more of like a visual or like a hands-on learner. So I want to like get in and I want to learn the content by actually doing it, by like going through and doing SQL injections against a machine to really understand the concepts. So for me, the self-study with slides was not that great. But because I had one of the higher tiered courses, I was also able to have video resources, which did help kind of pick up the slack a little bit with getting through the content. So it wasn't just death by PowerPoint. The labs themselves were probably my favorite part, actually. They did a really good job of really targeting the skills with individual machines. So you spin up a machine, and it gives you VPN access. And you go in, and you have access to this machine. It's just for you. You can reset it. You can blow it up. Doesn't matter. And it's targeted to that one specific skill. They'll give you goals and challenges to work through on this machine. So you'll have like different tiers of like cross-site scripting, and maybe there's some filtering involved. And each challenge has a different type of filtering that you need to find your way around. They did a really good job. I liked that a lot. Again, there's video resources, if you paid for them, that will kind of walk through maybe the first challenge, and then you're kind of left on your own to figure out the rest. The biggest pitfall I saw with these labs is it's really out of date. The web application penetration tester training that I got is from like 2011 or so. A lot of these things, a lot of tools and examples that they're trying to like get you to work through just don't exist anymore. So the one that comes to mind first is really the Flash security. That entire module is based around learning how to use a tool and going through just a Flash application with a tool that just doesn't exist. It stopped working back in like 2016, and like I spent a lot of time trying to hunt it down. I finally found it, got it installed, didn't work. Did some Googling around the error, and the official response from the devs is to set your clock back to like October 30th, 2016, because that's when their certificates expired, and that's as close as you're going to get to getting that software to work again. So when you're paying $1,500, $2,000 for a training, and the content is 9 years old, and it's solely referencing a tool that just doesn't exist or doesn't work anymore, that was really disappointing to see. But the rest of the labs, though, when they worked well. So the exam itself, is not a traditional test. It was, no multiple choice. It wasn't like reading comprehension, none of that stuff. It's a strict hands-on test that's basically a full-blown pen test. You're given a letter of engagement that includes the scope of the test, what's expected of you for a report, and that's really the deliverable is the report. So at the end of this exam period, you're expected to submit your report, and it will be reviewed, and it's kind of like a pass-fail from there. It's a 2-week exam period where the first week is pure testing. You have VPN access to your own environment. Again, like the labs, you can blow it up, you can reset it, you can do whatever you want. It's just there for you. And that's it. You have 1 week to test, and you need to find as many vulnerabilities in a web application as possible. And above that is the main goal of gaining administrative access to the environment. And as long as you do that and can compile a list of vulnerabilities, you should be all set. The second week, you lose access to that VPN. And that's when you have your reporting time. So hopefully you've gotten all your screenshots, all your notes, all your logs put together, everything that you're going to need in order to go through and build your report. I think mine was like 55 pages at the end of this. It was a long report. And I was really glad that I had all my screenshots, because if I didn't, I would have been pretty screwed. And then, yeah, again, it's a personalized testing environment. So from my experience, is elearnsecurity worth it? If self-study works for you, if you can read slides and absorb that information, and that's how you learn, then yeah, that would be worth it. If you're looking for a hands-on testing experience, something that's outside of like the multiple choice, like a real skill-driven test, this is a great exam to do that. And especially if you're enrolling in one of the newer courses, I would recommend eLearn. I have had the chance to look through one of the newer courses, and it's a night and day difference between the content. It's going from something that's 9 years old to one of the courses that was released just this year. I wish that I had that kind of quality content in my own. So getting on to the not worth it. If you're familiar with the basics, specifically for the web penetration tester, the basic course, don't bother. Just go with the advanced one. You'll learn a lot more. You'll get really a lot more of your money's worth out of it. If you need the videos, if you're a more visual learner, hands-on learning, maybe don't do this unless you're going to get the videos, because the videos really helped out a lot to pick up the slack in the courses that were just maybe not as detailed or didn't have the tools working. So I was at least able to watch someone else use the tools from 9 years ago to get an idea of, oh, that probably would have been fun to do. And then lastly, if you're going to pay full price, don't. I was very lucky to have the company I work for purchase this for me. But if you don't have that opportunity, they do send out lots of basically like price reductions. If you can sign up for an email, and you can get 25, 30% off, 50% off sometimes of these trainings, and just kind of wait for that to come around. And yeah, so never pay full price. So with that, are there any questions?
I mean, I think the probably obvious one jumps out. Post having the training, do you feel like it really kind of set you up with like more tools and ability and understanding of like the actual application testing in like the modern age?
Application, really learn a lot of skills. Disappointed about, but I was able to take away some things from the reporting side. Some stuff that I don't normally put in my reports. There's a lot of different types of charting and graphs and tools that generate those things. That was a really nice takeaway. And so I do plan on using those in my reports from now on. And that was probably the main takeaway that I got from this.
It looks like there's a couple in chat as well.
Oh, yeah. We've got Elyse. She's asking, On average, how long does it take does eLearn think it will take to get through the content?
Well, I guess it all depends on how much you study. So it took a long time to get through the slides. And I think that's kind of what turned me off to doing the rest of the certification a year ago, is that I just got really burnt out. It's a lot of reading, a lot of material. I mean, the information gathering section alone was about 300 slides, just that. And they're all up there with around that same amount. When I got to the labs, I got through all the labs in about a week. I think I only used 20 or maybe 30 tops hours of the lab time. And that was kind of just putting effort in every day to get through them. The exam itself was much faster than anticipated. It was the hands-on attacking phase was only about 2 days. And then I finished the report before I lost VPN access. So the whole exam for me was about a week, and then it will be about 30 days until I hear back from them.
Wild. Avi says, did you get your clock back and get the tool to work?
I didn't even bother. Actually, I skipped that. I said this is too much effort, and then I just watched the video of what they were doing, and I just kind of hoped it wasn't going to be in the test.
He says, not a question, nice beard.
Thanks.
Disclosure, they are friends, so I think you have a biased opinion, Avi. Yeah, 30-day wait, that's pretty rough. Yeah, that's like... Yeah,
they said that's a max. That's a high end in that it's typically before that.
So do you plan on taking another one? Like, do you think you'll give it another go?
Yeah, I would love to do one of the newer trainings, maybe the advanced web penetration certification or the exploit development one. Both of those are new, and they look really good for content. So probably one of those.
I've heard really good content. I've heard really good comments on the exploit development. It is a nice precursor to the OSCE. So that's sort of interesting. Does anybody else have any feedback on elearnsecurity when we take their courses or anything like that?
I had a pretty good experience using the EJPT and the PTS course. Like, pretty strong video walkthroughs and stuff. A pretty good introduction precursor to the OSCP, I think. I haven't taken the OSCP yet, so.
I believe in you, Matt. You've got this.
Thank you, sir.
All right. Well, if there's no more questions, of course, follow Ryan on LinkedIn. No, are you a Twitter person?
No.
Ryan? No, that's okay. Yeah, Josh says, Matt's a stone cold computer killer. Yeah, yeah. Everybody has faith in you. Yay. So sorry, I'm not a Twitter person either, but I do it because of the DC207 stuff, and InfoSec Twitter is like really cool. So, just a side note, you should get into it. No peer pressure or anything. But if you ever does get one, we'll post it here. And Ryan, if you just want to send your slides over to me, I'll make sure that they get included with the wrap-up email.
Sure.
So, yeah, so thank you again. So we do not have Jen with us. So I just was communicating with her, and she's having some technical difficulties. But thankfully, we have another speaker waiting in the wings for us. And I'm very, very grateful for this person, so thank you. I'd like to introduce Curtis this evening. Curtis is going to be giving us a little talk on networking and InfoSec. Now, Curtis, if you know him at all, which I think most people do because he's amazing, he's involved with the ISC Squared group, and he's all into this networking stuff. I think more so than I am. So. Anyway, so I'm going to go ahead and kick it over to you, Curtis, for your brief demonstration and conversation. I think you're on mute.
Hey, I will even unmute myself. Thanks for that, and for the pro tip on how to use a computer. Needed that, actually. So hypothetically, if one isn't very familiar with Zoom, where's the presentation application section?
I have a question for you, though, before you start. You know, can you explain the white claw on your windowsill and the ladder? And where are you? Should we be safe? Should we worry?
Well, I had to split the difference because if you look over on the other side, there's like a book and a cat on a bed. So, you know, I was trying to figure out which is the more professional look. So it's the second room, which in a small apartment means that it is for all of the storage and computers and cats.
And the curtain.
And yes, storage of all unnecessary but occasionally useful items. All right. Shoot. More. All right. Someone's gonna have to help me out here. Where's the Zoom presentation?
So if you're in the Zoom window and you move your mouse around, the bottom bar will show up, and then there'll be a share screen in the middle.
Oh, geez. You mean the big, brightly colored one?
No, not at all.
Well,
and you know, appreciating the fact that you are colorblind, it would be hard to see it, right?
Of course, that's exactly it. All right. So we'll go ahead and pop this up. I even put a clever title on it. Plugging in, Networking in InfoSec. So what I mean, you know what? We'll get to that in a second. I'm Curtis. I work in the industry. I've had a few different roles over about the last 10 years or so. What doesn't show up on here is that there was also a stint as a night shift security guard, a deli clerk, and while normally those aren't very relevant, I think that might be kind of useful to know about sort of as a career trajectory, and that this, what I'm going to talk about, networking, while not always a super easy thing for all of us to do, can really help you kind of take your career and your own path in a direction that you'd like it to go. I love all sorts of little wacky things, also ladders, like board games. Once we can all hang out again, if anyone ever wants to meet up at a place and play board games, I'm always down. And cats are awesome. I will fight anyone who says otherwise. Okay, so what do I mean when I said networking? I found this one actually off of Investopedia as a definition, so you know it must be good because those people care a lot about everything, if anyone's ever been on their website. So networking, the exchange of information ideas among people with a common profession or special interest, usually in an informal social setting. Shop talk in a way that's hopefully not as awkward and kind of tense as the work environment can be, or at least it doesn't have sort of those other concerns that your workplace might. And also it's people outside of your work, so you'll get a better feel for what's normal and what's not. Also, great opportunity for some gifts. Now, all of you are here already in these meetings, so it's a little bit, you obviously all have reasons for being here. But here's in general why it's worth putting the effort in to do this. You have to set aside time after your workday regularly on the second Thursday, which I have a lot of things going on. But there's a lot of good reasons. Kind of number one, at least for me, and these are a little bit in my order of preference. You get to see and hear new things. There are components that I just, in my course of Googling throughout the day, might not hit. I might not read about, or I might not understand what I'm reading and why it's so important. A little tweet about a Azure token is probably just going to get a glance over it from me, but somebody presenting about how that can be used in, then I can make the connections between my environment and this concept. I think that's very valuable. Gets the brain thinking a little bit. As we all know, who you know matters. I'm not going to say it matters more than what you know. In this industry, just like in anything else, a lot of us, we work with people depending on sort of our positions and roles. I'm a blue teamer. Really, the entire function of my position is to take this information, what's going on, what the InfoSec side is, and work with people who it's not their bread and butter. Need to be able to convey and translate why this is important. Why is it a problem that we have Flash on all of the servers? Maybe we take that off. It's people interacting, and who you know doesn't just matter for getting you the job. It can make your work with a client or a customer easier. It can just really be helpful. An opportunity for developing some skills. I got to do a demo with Splunk and kind of do a threat hunting. That's a whole big heavy lift. Provides that opportunity and the option to ask people who might know a whole lot more about a particular topic than I do. We have at least 25 people here, it looked like, tonight. I bet if you look, there's probably a person who's pretty well read or passionate about a particular subtopic. So, you know, you have that resource. And last but not least, you know, free pizza. And sometimes there's more than others, but I swear the pizza thing is like totally everywhere in Portland, like all of them. All right, getting involved. So first step is showing up. And obviously everyone here has already done that. It doesn't hurt, and it can really be rewarding to get more involved. There's a lot of different ways you can do that. Volunteering and being directly involved in the running of the chapter, offering to be a speaker, basically enabling. There's a lot of kind of methods in there, or areas you can offer some assistance. It doesn't have to be in the spotlight. A lot of us aren't very comfortable with that. It's a good it's a way that you can kind of still contribute, whether or not it's lining up the website or putting out the announcements. Lots of options. Spreading the word. And by this, obviously you can tell your friends and your coworkers, and that's good. And it's really important. It lets these communities grow, become more healthy. But by spread the word, I also want to kind of bring up, it is an area where we're all pretty new. This can be an opportunity for you to bring in elements that you think are missing, or other people who you think might not usually consider it. Someone who's brand new and only loosely linked, but thinks locks are fun. You can bring them into this world and kind of provide an opportunity for them getting exposure to it. For example, I have a coworker from when I worked at the grocery store that I brought into a Bangor one of these. It's the passion, it's valued input, and it they might not be aware of it. And last but certainly not least, feel free to contribute suggestions. Most of us who are involved in these and help put them together absolutely can use ideas, speaker suggestions. Just feel free to contribute. It's going to be welcome. Nobody thinks less. It's a lot of times just things that never crossed our minds. So feel free to put that one out there. It's very helpful, and it makes the community better. And kind of the last reason, something that's a little tangentially related, but I would say that everybody here is, or at least a lot of us here, are already, you know, in the career path or loosely. But it's not a bad thing to kind of think about what your goals are. And while you might not want to be totally 1980s financier about it, there's nothing wrong with reaching out and asking people for help on how you can reach your goals. By being a part of this community and kind of interacting with everybody, it can be a resource for a lot of parts of this, not just the technical. I have personally reached out to, I believe, 3 different people between this and another group for questions about career trajectories, suggestions, paths, thoughts, feedback. And it's not always that I want a job. Sometimes it's just to get their thoughts on something. So using the resource, this community, it strengthens it, and you can get a lot out of it, and it can make your this significant portion of your life, 45 hours a week or whatever it is, it can make it better and more rewarding. more importantly, the money and all that's aside. But it can make it much more rewarding. And I guess I'd want to make sure that everyone kind of considers that part. Any questions or comments? And oh, there's a chat.
So we have one question from Matt Stroder. He says, "Are there any laws when you're drinking claws?"
Good question. I'm glad someone put out there. Due to the sweltering Summer 2020 Act, there are in fact no laws when you're drinking the claws. This, however, a case I believe it was in Pennsylvania, I think the Fourth Circuit Supreme. This does not apply to all spiked seltzers. It does in fact only apply to claws. Thank you. Good question.
Josh has a comment. Curtis is great. Avi asks, do you have any memes of yourself, any gifs of yourself that you'd be willing to share?
No, I don't have any animated ones. There are, I believe, some reacts out there on certain servers. So if you're in the right chat room, you may find a react emoji.
Yeah. Somebody quick take a screen cap while he's got his video still up. We'll come up with something.
I sure hate that.
Yeah. That's awesome. This is a recorded talk, so someone could make some. Yeah. So, yeah, that's definitely possible for sure. So Curtis, I guess I just have a comment or question, something like that. Tell me, how has your experience been, working with ISC Squared? You've been sort of involved in that community and helping develop it and, making it better than, what it has been. Can you tell us a little bit, like have you learned anything from that experience that you think people should know?
I think there definitely are. Oh, right, camera. Yes. So I got, I think I first went to an ISC Squared meeting. I was pretty new in Portland, so it might have been almost 3 years ago, somewhere around there. But for context, I was working like my first sort of non-help desk job at an MSP and basically knew nobody. So I went into that with my body of knowledge being just what I had done day to day at work, some networking and some Windows password resetting. I went and just a general kind of interest in computers. For me, getting exposed to that really kind of gave me some inspiration, some ideas and places to look to kind of pick a career path, pick a focus. Something else I realized was the pizza was awesome, but it wasn't the end-all be-all, and there's always help that can be given and opportunity to step up and try to contribute. And having only one person working in an environment like that, it leads to stagnation and burnout, and there's just no diversity if you have one presenter every week or something. So that's why I wanted to be clear that contributions are very welcome and they make it better for everyone.
That's a great point. I also share that sentiment. I'm always looking for content myself. I'm always trying to reach out and pull people on Twitter asking them for stuff. But the thing is, like, even smaller events and people who don't have necessarily a whole lot of experience speaking, those people are the people I often want to hear from, not only to just like help boost your own profile in the community, but also, to help improve your public speaking skills and, share what you know, because like just to Curtis's point, like his career trajectory was not, like the common one. I don't know anybody in InfoSec that has like the common career trajectory. Like, to be honest, like my background, I worked in like sales for a long time, and that's how I learned how to effectively lie to people. So that was like my first thing when I got into school and I got into a help desk job and I went through this whole thing. So it's sort of like a twisty turny thing. And while those experiences don't feel relevant, they most definitely are. That makes you who you are, and that brings your perspective again, which is totally different and something that is usually fresh. So, yeah, very cool. Well, well played with Curtis's presentation of the closer. I know, he's awesome. You gotta put him in the. Plus, there's the white claw on the ladder. Like, how could we not? What was in that box? Is there a cat in that box? Or?
Oh, yes, there was, but now the cat is on the bed because she had a tiring day of taking naps.
My black cat, actually, she likes to sleep in the sink, too. So
yeah.
She likes it when it's like kind of wet, too, which is, like, weird.
Yeah, it's kind of gross, but they're cute.
Well, thank you so much, Curtis. Thank you again for coming in last moment's notice. A great topic. I'm just going to share my screen really quick. I have just a slide to announce our winner, to close the next event. All right. So while people were giving presentations, I got the spinny wheel out and I spun the wheel. So our winner tonight is John Costa, who is still here. Hey, John. I just messaged John. I asked him, please do not use this equipment to disrupt any like air traffic or like crucial radio signals or anything like that. So if you guys don't know what an SDR is, it's software-defined radio. It's really a piece of hardware that will work with a piece of software, and they're really cool. I actually have a couple of these kinds of things at my own house, and we actually plan on giving away something called a quarter-pack, a Habit quarter-pack, in a few more sessions down the road, which is basically the same thing, but all in one big aluminum box, which is pretty cool, so it's portable. But this one is super awesome. Again, it can help you see and hear all kinds of radio sort of things, and there's tons of content on the web about that. John, I'm going to send you one of those out. And if you guys ever want one of these for yourself, we do sell them on the DC207 swag shop. They're $49.95, and all of that money goes right into our DC207 scholarship. So anyway, so congratulations, John. So next month, we do have, this is a probably, I'm so very tentative booking this. I'm still working out the details. We plan on having a red teamer with tons of years of experience to come in and give us a talk about the 4 stages of OffSec teams. And it kind of talks about how OffSec teams get started, why they like appear, what they do, and how they interact with the company. And I just thought this was a really cool topic, and selfishly, I thought it was a cool topic because I'm in a red team, and I often wonder what's next for us. So anyway, so probably going to be that, but I also have another talk potentially booked just in case. But that's all I have for you. And one more thing, gosh, I just had it. I don't know. I still have about like 20 Pride stickers left. If you guys want any of these, just send me your email, or send me your address, and I'll send you one of these things out. I just have about 20 left. Normally, I just like hand them out at meetings, but again, we're all apart. So if anybody wants one, just let me know, and I will send it out to you. So thanks for coming. Sign up for next month, and thank you. Thank you. Bye.
Thanks for putting it together.
See ya.
That applause thing is new. That's cool.